Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the B segment of episode 28 of The Loud House, The Old and the Restless. We begin this segment with Rita dropping Lincoln off at Sunset Canyon Retirement Home, which is where the Loud siblings' grandpa, Pop from CoverGirls, is now living at. She plans to stop by to pick Lincoln back up at 6 p.m., which is when the retirement home closes. As Rita leaves and Lincoln's entering the retirement home, the nurse who runs the place is kicking one of the senior citizens out because he apparently missed the 6 p.m. curfew. As Lincoln enters the building, he reunites with Pop, ready to spend a day of fun with his grandpa. We then see the nurse come by to see Lincoln. Her name is Sue, and we find out Pop's first name. His name is Albert. Sue disregards the list of fun activities that Lincoln had in mind, saying that someone old like Albert would easily get hurt. So Albert tries to make the most of this by trying to have fun with Lincoln with what's in the building, like the pool or the shuffleboard or some other board games or what have you. But Sue constantly puts a stop to the fun, once again claiming that Albert would get easily injured. And she even insists that Albert take some nap, even though he's not really tired. Lincoln figures that Sue is making Albert feel like a frail old man, when in actuality, he's pretty spry for someone his age. Mentioning how he played a paintball game against Navy SEALs 1 month ago, or 1 month from when this segment takes place. And Lincoln manages to convince his grandpa that they should actually head out into the town and have some fun like they usually do. On their way out, though, Sue threatens Albert that if he's not back by 6 p.m., he'll be kicked out, just like the senior citizen from earlier. And so Lincoln keeps that in mind as he's leading his grandpa out on the town, while Sue is pointing out the watch on her wrist to tell Lincoln that, yeah, she has the timer set. And while we see Lincoln and his grandpa heading to different areas, and at first Albert seems a bit reluctant, still because of some of the words Sue has said to him in the past, but thanks to Lincoln's encouragement, he does the things he does, like he does what he used to do before he came to Sunset Canyon Retirement Home, and he's having the time of his life. After a good day of fun, Albert actually befriends the big biker who appeared in Hand Me Downer. We finally find out, well, it's not his real name. I don't imagine his parents actually gave him the name. It's probably just his nickname, but they call him T-Bone now, so yeah, I imagine that's a nickname because I don't know any parents who would name their kids T-Bone. But in any case, Albert wants to ride on the motorcycle with T-Bone so they can continue to have some more fun. Lincoln says, though, that they're getting close to 6 p.m. and they want to make sure they get back in time before the curfew takes effect, but Albert kind of brushes off Sue's threat, saying that he'll deal with Sue, and he goes on to have, continues to have his campaign of fun. So that leaves Lincoln having to chase his grandpa around town, trying to catch up to him so that they can have enough time to make it back to Sunset Canyon Retirement Home. After some very extreme events, like, it definitely shows you that Albert is very spry for his age. Like, he does skydiving at one point, as an example, rides a mechanical bull, and he's manages to get caught on TV at a baseball game. But eventually, Lincoln's able to finally catch up to Albert, and they have about a half hour to make it back. They do make it back before 6, but apparently they hide when Sue shows up, and Sue decides it's close enough to 6 anyway, so she closes the doors early. So Lincoln and Albert aren't sure how they're going to get back in without Sue realizing that they were gone still. But the other senior citizens in the retirement home actually agree to help Albert out, saying that they saw all his amazing feats through TV or just looking out the window in some cases, and saying that it inspired them. So they try to help Albert get back into the retirement home and try to distract Sue so that he can make it back into his room. And despite their best efforts, though, Sue does catch Lincoln and Albert sneaking back into his room when they thought they gave her the slip. So she's threatened to kick Albert out now. Lincoln apologizes to Albert, but Albert says Lincoln has nothing to apologize for, saying that he had the most fun, that today was one of the most fun days of his life, if not the most fun day, and that he wouldn't want to stay in a place that makes him feel helpless and incompetent. But soon enough, though, the rest of the senior citizens at the retirement home actually threaten to leave if Albert is kicked out, pointing out that Sue won't have a senior center to run if there are no seniors. So Sue begrudgingly allows Albert to stay, and even though she demands they all head back into their rooms to nap, Albert says they'll nap when they feel like they nap because they're not helpless babies. And so Sue storms off in anger, and the senior citizens and Lincoln cheer. Eventually, Rita does return, and she greets her dad. That's right, Albert is confirmed to be Rita's dad, making him the maternal grandpa of the Loud siblings. And Lincoln and Rita are about to leave, but the segment ends with them seeing Albert go off to have some fun in the pool with the other senior citizens. And that's how we end the segment. Now, I really enjoyed this segment. This is probably one of my favorite season 2 segments. I definitely would consider it one of my favorites from the series overall so far, too. And the main reason for that is, Lincoln and Albert's bonding with each other. Because the revelation that Albert is the Loud siblings' maternal grandpa stood out to me in particular because in a lot of ways he kind of does remind me of my own maternal grandpa, and I had a lot of fun hanging around with him too. Sadly though, he's no longer with us, and he actually hasn't been with us for quite some time now. I was really young when it happened. Despite that, I still feel like I knew him very well, and so I guess you could say in a lot of ways, Lincoln and his bonding time with Albert, it kind of not just reminded me of the good times I had with my own maternal grandpa, but it also kind of felt like what could have been if he was still with us. And so that's why it was a pretty heartwarming sight, and it was nice to see Lincoln spend some time with his grandpa. And Scoots was one of the retirement home citizens. She was from For Bros About to Rock, so it was nice to see that they referenced another minor character, made a comeback. I thought that was a nice touch. Now, I know there were some people who felt this way about the segment. Some people thought Sue was made out to be worse than she actually was. Now, like I've mentioned in the past, Loud House is the kind of show that doesn't have any real heroes or real villains in them. There isn't, but I guess you could say this would probably be the close. Some would argue this would be the closest to a designated villain, in the sense that they thought Sue was made out to be worse than she actually was in the segment. Some people thought, oh, she's a killjoy, but she's trying to keep order in the facility and against a bunch of troublemakers. And I don't agree with that. For me, Sue's antagonism, the way Sue was portrayed as an antagonist, that was justified to me personally when I was watching the segment. Because to me, Sue didn't strike me as just being some killjoy who was just trying to keep order with some troublemakers. She felt more like someone who misuses her position of power or acts entitled and misuses it in the name of keeping order. And that probably has to do with the fact that there are some people that I know in real life who reminded me of how Sue acted in this segment. I've seen some people who would use the whole I have a position of power so I can treat people however I want, or this is my jurisdiction, or I hold authority over this jurisdiction, therefore I get to treat you however I want, and if you don't like it, tough luck sort of deal. That's what Sue came off to me. It was, yeah, she just came off more as just a tyrant who just got a kick out of misusing her position of power. And the sentiments that Sue was kind of underestimating Albert and treating him and the other senior citizens as incompetent and helpless, that actually is a valid concern. I've seen my share of instances where, of course, that's not to say all senior centers. It wouldn't be fair to make sweeping generalizations like that. But I have seen some instances where there are some staff members who do treat senior citizens as helpless, or as Albert put it, treats them like babies when they aren't. And I knew this because of one of my own relatives who had been in some senior centers. And much like Albert was, this relative of mine was quite spry for their age. They were able to do things that people younger than them, but still in the senior center, but younger than them, wouldn't have been able to do. So, I mean, I can understand and appreciate the concern of being cautious, but at the same time, I think there's a fine line between being cautious and just treating people like they're helpless or incompetent. And to me, Sue didn't come off as just trying to keep order with a bunch of troublemakers. She did strike me more as just a tyrant who got a kick out of misusing her position of power. So that's what I thought. I felt Sue's and being portrayed as an antagonist was valid in my mind. And it was nice to see Albert again. Like I said, he was a really fun character, and we got to learn a little bit more about him. We now know his first name. We know he's Rita's dad, and he's been in the army at some point. So far, his last name, and by extension, Rita's maiden name, that hasn't been revealed yet. And I'm hoping they'll reveal that in the future, because, like I said, it's nice. I like those little details where you get to learn more about the characters and what have you. So, there you have it. Now, between the two segments for episode 28, I preferred this one, but I don't dislike the A segment. I still thought the A segment was a good segment, but I do feel this one was a bit stronger. I liked how, like I said, Albert and Lincoln's bonding time really brought back some good memories for me, and reminds me of what things could have been like if my own grandpa was still around. And while I'm thinking about it, yeah, this is the first segment where none of the Loud sisters appear. So it was just Lincoln. That means as of this segment, Lincoln is the only character with a perfect attendance record. Although if the word of some staff members is indication, season 3 might have some segments where Lincoln doesn't appear in. we'll have to wait and see once season 3 hits airwaves. And yeah, that's what it was. Between this segment and its sibling segment, the sisters did kind of took a back seat for this particular episode. Because even in season 1, segments where the sisters where only a handful of the sisters appeared, there still was usually at least one with a prevalent role. That wasn't the case in either segment here. But I don't think that was necessarily a bad thing. And to be fair, season 2 does have some more segments, which puts the Loud Sisters and other characters, for that matter, as the viewpoint characters. So that might have been what surprised some people, because they heard season 2 would have more focus on the sisters. So the fact that an early episode in the season had both segments with Lincoln as in a prevalent role that's probably what surprised a lot of people. But there you go. As of there you have it. We've now discussed both segments of episode 28 on this channel now. Take care, and until next time.